Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of this series of videos on how to make a game in GameMaker. This is probably going to be the last main one. I think I'm going to do an additional video on how to just make the game look pretty because I've only used placeholders for each of the objects in my game. So at the moment it kind of looks okay, but it doesn't really look nice. But that's not what this episode's about. This episode is just going to be about how to set up some lives. So we're going to give our player 3 lives at the start of the game. When the player runs out of lives, we want there to be a game over screen. And if the player manages to get through all the levels without losing all 3 lives, we'll just have a screen that says congratulations or well done or some sort of congratulatory message for finishing the game. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go over to this object play button. Now this, if I go back to the title screen room, we made this in the previous episode, and this button is used to start the game. And what I'm going to do is on object play button, I'm going to go to this left down code. Now at the moment it just says room go to next, but before that I'm going to create a global variable. So global dot. So I'm going to call it global.lives and I'm going to set it to 3. The reason I'm using a global variable is that this will be a variable that will be accessible to every object within the game. So that's that. Now, next I'm going to head on over to my object player, my player object. I'm going to have a look at the enemy code. So over here, this is the code that I've set up for when the player bumps into an enemy. I'm going to type in global.lives equals global.lives -1. So what this does is when the player bumps into this enemy, the number of lives that the player has goes down. I'm going to copy this and put this onto the other code that I've got for the other enemy. There we go. So global.lives equals global.lives -1. Next, we want to create a room similar to our title screen room that we will go to when we get game over. So what I'm going to do is my title screen room that we were looking at earlier. I'm just going to right click on that. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to double click on it. So I'm on this duplicated version. I'm going to rename it as well. So it's saying title screen. I'm going to call it game over screen. Okay, I'm going to move these buttons around, keep the exit button, still want an exit button. And now there's a reason I'm moving these to the side, and that is that if they're in the same place as where the buttons on the title screen are, it's very easy to accidentally click on one and then click on the next one immediately afterwards. So we wouldn't even get to see the title screen again. What we want is that the player goes on the game over screen and then they get the option of either going back to the title screen or exiting the game. So I'm going to first of all get rid of this background because that's our title screen background. So go to my background layer, click on that. I'm going to set that to none. I'm going to make it black. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to keep, like I said, I'm going to keep the exit button. I'll go back onto my instances layer, keep the exit button, move that there. The play button is going to get deleted. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a new button. So I'm going to right click on my object play button and I'm just going to duplicate it. So duplicate that. I'm going to call this object title button. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to change the sprite. Now, this is a sprite that I've already made that just says menu. So menu there. Going to go to the draw code again, and I'm just going to change this from saying sprite play button hover to sprite menu hover. So this is a sprite that I've made that I want to show when we're hovering over it, and the regular button when we're not hovering over it. So sprite menu button. There we go. So that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to change the left down code. So it's not going to set global.lives to 3. We'll get rid of that. And the room go to is not going to be the next room because this is actually going to be the last room when we order them, which we could do here. And as you can see at the moment, I've got my title screen first, room 1, room 2, room 3, and the game over screen is last. So if we try to go to the next room, what will actually happen is the game will just crash, which we don't want. So I'll close that. What we actually want is room, go to, brackets, and I'm just going to say title underscore screen. So when that button is pressed, it's going to take us to the title screen. Fantastic. So if I go back onto my game over screen over here, there you go. So I'm going to drag this menu button. I've called it title button. Menu is what I should have called it, really. I'm gonna change that actually. So I'll rename that. Object underscore menu underscore button. Move that. Now then, what I also want is an object up here. So it's going to basically display one image if the player got game over, and another image if the player has managed to get to this level, which is, like you've seen, the last level in the game. So if they manage to get to this level without having got a game over, it's going to show that image. So I'm going to create a new object. I'm just going to call it game object underscore game underscore over. The sprite is going to be a sprite that I've already created, and it is over here somewhere. There we go. So game over. So by default, it looks like that. I'm going to go to an add event, and this is going to be a draw event. What we're going to do is we're going to check if global dot lives equals 0, and then we use the curly brackets. So if it is, sprite underscore index equals sprite game over, which is the image that I created for my game over, as you can see over here. And then else, so if that's not true, so if they have 1 life or more, sprite index equals sprite escape. That's it. So sprite escaped. And then I'm just going to make it draw self. That's very important. So at the end of any draw code, we need to actually tell it to draw the sprite. So draw self there. And then one last thing we're going to need to do is we're actually going to make the player teleport to this room if they happen to have died. So I'm going to scroll up to my object player. Here we are. And after all this code over here that checks all the movement, I'm just going to check if global dot lives equals 0, room underscore go to, and brackets game over screen. There we go. I'll close that. Okay, now then, that should work. There's one last thing I haven't done, in that I have set up a score. What I want to do is I want to reset the score when they press play. So I'll go back to my object play button. Score equals 0. What I forgot to mention in the previous video where we set up the score is that score is actually a built-in variable that's used across the game. So it's already a global variable, so we don't actually need to write global for it. So score equals 0. I'm going to set that up there so that every time we press the play button, the score is set back to 0. Now then, that's all looking good, except we're not actually, and I'll run the game and you'll see that we have got 3 lives, but we're not actually telling the user how many lives they've got, which is no good to the player. So I'll press play. There we go. So we can see the points up there. We want to display the lives. I will check though. I'm going to die 3 times. That's once, twice, and if I die again now, I should go to the game over screen immediately. There we go. Oh, I didn't put the sprite there, did I? There we go. So I'll exit. There we go. So there's a good idea. I'll need to go back onto the game over screen room. So drag object game over here. There we go. Okay, there's that. Yeah, so we need to actually be able to see how many lives we got. So I'm going to go to object player, and on the draw GUI code, which is the code that we used to show the score, I'm just going to underneath, draw underscore text, brackets. So it's going to be the X of it is going to be 10 again. The Y I'm going to set at 40, so it's about 30 pixels lower than the score. And I'm going to write in speech marks live plus string brackets, then the name of the variable. So it's going to be global dot lives. Close that and close those brackets. And what this does here, this string, is this, first of all, any text in any programming language is referred to as a string. However, a number or an integer is not saved as a string, so it isn't saved as regular text. Now in this code over here, we're using the score, but we're only showing the score. We haven't got a word before it, so we can just make it display a string just fine. But over here, when we try and add a string to an integer, it just confuses the program and it will crash. However, by converting the lives variable into a string first, we can just stick them both together. So that shouldn't just say lives, it should say lives with a colon and a space. There we go. So lives like that. So if I run this now, I should be able to see the number of lives. I should be able to get game over, and I should see the game over text on that screen. So we'll just run it. Lives, there we go. So I'm gonna, oh, there you go, it died. Just about clipped it there. Wasn't good. Yeah, and I should, the number of lives should remain the same as you progress through the levels as well. So if I go over here, if I just try and complete this level without dying again. There we go. I should still have 2 lives on the next level. There we go. Okay, I'm going to die here. I'm going to die again. Okay, game over screen. Okay, so exit there. Menu here to take me back to the main menu. Press play, and my score should be back to 0, and my lives should be back to 3, but we'll check. There we go. Perfect. And there we go. That's finished. Now, like I said, I'm going to make one more video after this that's just going to be on how to make your game pretty. But using what you've got so far, this should have all the basics down to make a complete maze game. Thank you for watching.